According to traditional psychiatric textbooks, a delusion is a fixed, false belief not amenable to reason. To put it another way, the assumption is that people who are delusional can't be reasoned with. They just won't get it. Delusions are different from simple opinions in that they're a psychotic symptom, one of three types of symptom that are common in disorders such as schizophrenia. That doesn't mean that all delusional people should be diagnosed with schizophrenia, simply that people diagnosed with schizophrenia are often delusional. It's a symptom. Racism is based upon a false belief. It doesn't fit reality to be racist. There's good and bad in all groups, and so to discriminate against anyone on the grounds of skin colour or indeed religion or national origin is irrational in itself. However, the fact that racism is irrational isn't enough to say that it's delusional. It needs to be a fixed belief, which means that it doesn't change, and it needs to be not amenable to reason. In other words, it must be impossible or near impossible to shake a person's conviction, no matter how much evidence you place before them. Let's look at how such irrational beliefs develop. Anthropologists and psychologists agree that group identity is important. Membership of a group brings a feeling of safety, of security, and so group members tend to want to conform. This is most likely a result of the survival instinct that would have served our evolutionary ancestors well. When you look like dinner to every passing predator, there really is safety in numbers. That's probably the origin of the modern idea of loyalty. We're loyal to our friends, even when we disagree with them, because that's how we keep the group together. To be rejected by our social group is to be vulnerable and alone. We fear abandonment because the world outside the group is dangerous. It's scary to lose the protection of a group. To ensure that we remain safe, we shun outsiders and stick rigidly to the group norms, us and them. There's another name for that: paranoia. Incidentally, paranoia is one of the more common forms of delusion. That's why a very common psychotic diagnosis is paranoid schizophrenia. Arguably, paranoia represents the beginnings of insanity. Now, this brings two basic psychological problems. One, we need to find a way to believe the group is right, even when it's not, or else we risk rejection from the group. Two, when things go wrong, we need to blame others outside the group, because to blame those inside the group is also to risk being rejected by them. For racists, the group is defined in very simple, easy to recognize terms. If you're the same colour as us, then you're one of us. If you're a different colour, then you're them. Since the problems we face can't be acknowledged as part of us, it must come from them. It's no coincidence that racist, xenophobic groups like UKIP and the BNP began to experience electoral success just as the economy crashed, mainly due to the actions of white bankers, by the way. Such discrimination is predictable at times of social pressure. It mirrors the rise of anti-Semitism in medieval Europe as the Black Death spread across the continent and the people scapegoated minorities. It mirrors the rise of the Nazis in Germany following the disastrous economic penalties enforced by the Treaty of Versailles at the end of World War I. The German people needed someone to blame that wasn't us. They chose the highly visible minorities of Jews, blacks, communists and gypsies. Let's examine the psychological processes in more detail. We all have the ability to ignore information that doesn't fit our preferred beliefs, to concentrate only upon the evidence that does fit. This is known as selective abstraction. We select the bits of information we want to acknowledge and abstract or isolate them from the rest of the evidence. That's how racists can say that all black and Asian people are inferior, parasitic or immoral, even though there's clear evidence of extremely moral, intelligent and successful individuals from both those groups. But, as a result, racists find themselves increasingly isolated by the more reasonable members of society, and so their social group becomes smaller. The need to conform to the group is greater because they have fewer people outside the group that they can go to. Plus, avoiding rejection by other party members becomes paramount. The problem is that inclusion in the group comes at a price. Members are now locked into conformity, and that means believing the group's ideology no matter how ridiculous it might be. It's vital that the racist is able to ignore, avoid, or somehow unhear the truth if he's to maintain his racism. So the racist flees any forum where people might express the opposite view, unless he or she can go there in sufficient numbers to shout down the opposition. They threaten and intimidate anyone who holds opinions that they dislike in an attempt to make the whole world a safe space where nobody can ever challenge their ill-conceived beliefs. The alternative's just too frightening for them. And they call us snowflakes. By refusing to acknowledge all the evidence, it becomes impossible for the racist to see reality, and this makes their racist belief not amenable to reason. The definition of a delusion, a fixed, false belief not amenable to reason, applies. It's not necessary to be diagnosed with an actual mental disorder to be delusional. All we need is loyalty to a group so paranoid that it ignores the evidence before it. In modern UK, there are many such groups to choose from.